Hi there. Today I wanted to talk about a sweet wine from the Loire. I was lucky enough to find this in a wine shop today. It's a Bonnezeaux from Le Domaine des Grands Vignes, a vineyard called Malabe. And it's 2009 vintage, which, 2009 was a splendid vintage for the Loire. And so I'm hoping that this will be a sort of a fully mature, good example of a sweet wine from this part of the world. So Bonnezeaux. Bonnezeaux is a small appellation, it's about 90 hectares, in the Anjou region of the Loire. So we're about 15 kilometres of where the river flows through Angers, so south of there, in an area where there's some southeast facing hillsides with sort of sandy sandstone and schist soils that are quite free draining. The grape variety used here is Chenin Blanc, and Chenin acquires botrytis under humid conditions, which, as I say, exist because of the influence of the Atlantic Ocean in this part of the world. And if you have to go back to the 19th century, and somebody called Jean Boivin came to the region and bought one of the really good estates around here, Chateau de Fezles. But he'd previously worked in Sauternes, and he saw how they worked with botrytis grapes by sort of going through at harvest time and picking only the ripe grapes at a time and going through several times in trees, in passes, to just pick the botrytis berries individually. And he implemented that in Bonnezeaux, and that is the way that the sweet wines of Bonnezeaux are now made traditionally. This particular wine is made by a family called the Vaillant family, and the Vaillants have farmed the land that they have here evidently since the 17th century. Their most recent innovations came in about 2008 when they converted to biodynamic and organic practices. So all their wines are made both biodynamically and organically, and they're very enthusiastic about doing that. So as a 2009, this would be in the early days of that, and I noticed that there is organic certification, but I don't see a Demeter symbol for biodynamic, so I presume at that stage they're still in conversion. This wine is made, as I say, with various passes through the vineyard. So hand harvested, you can't harvest botrytis by machine, and the wine is the fruit is gently pressed. It's allowed to settle overnight, and then put into seasoned French oak barrels to ferment. So the wine stays in barrel for a year and is then bottled. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we, and see what we make of it. First thing to say is it's got a splendid sort of rich gold colour. It's not quite getting to tawny, but actually when I poured this, I thought to myself, oh gosh, has this gone off in bottle on the shelf? But no, actually, I don't think so. So let's have a look at the aromas and see if we think there are any issues there. Gosh, that's honeyed. I suppose there are slightly oxidised sherry top notes. So, possibly this is a wine that has passed its best. It may still be very enjoyable though. Let's see what it's like on the. But yeah, so sorry, I was talking honeyed. Yes, it may be past its best, but those top notes make the honeyed notes almost sort of treacly sort of notes, sort of golden treacle, that sort of note on top there. So let's have a taste. On the palate, there's more sort of notes of burned sugar. There is a sort of a honeyed note after it. It's not. The wine has good freshness, and there's a sort of a lemony, a candied lemon peel sort of note to it, and a freshness to the finish. There's not really a sort of a concentrated honeyed note to the mid palate. That is more sort of sweetness. The sweetness lasts. There's some delicate notes of honeysuckle. They're coming in there at the end. As I say, honeyed. Maybe the wine's starting to look a little tired, but actually it's giving some lovely richness. There's a it's not weighty, but there's a roundness to the mid palate, a roundness of the fruit. As I say, sort of treacly sort of notes, not syrup, but a much more developed note than that. There's none of the sort of the waxiness that I would have expected, perhaps from a developed Chenin. Maybe there's a touch on the nose, but it's much more honeyed and that sort of lifted honeysuckle note, which I suppose is perhaps a slightly different expression of the same thing. So yes, Bonnezeaux from Domaine Les Grandes Vignes, 2009. Possibly not easy to find, but if you have some 2009 sweet wines such as Bonnezeaux from the Loire, probably well worth drinking them now, because that tastes really good. Thanks for watching. Hope you found it interesting, and do join us again. Bye now.